Welcome to my channel Mintage Mysteries, where every coin has a hidden story. If you love discovering hidden treasures and uncovering coin secrets, you're in the right place. We're on a quest to solve the puzzles behind the world's most fascinating coins. From rare errors to legendary rarities, let's dive into the mysteries of numismatics. In 1996, the Lincoln cent circulating in the United States was the product of nearly a century of artistic decisions, engineering changes, and economic pressures that shaped both its appearance and its physical structure. To understand the 1996 penny in full detail, it helps to trace how its design and composition evolved up to that moment and how the mint actually produced it. The design of the obverse had its roots in 1909, when the United States Mint decided to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. Sculptor Victor David Brenner created a portrait that differed from the classical, idealized style used on many earlier U.S. coins. Instead of depicting a symbolic figure, Brenner chose a realistic likeness of Lincoln based on photographic references. He modeled the president facing right, with a slightly serious expression, a deeply cut cheek line, and detailed hair waves. The style reflected the period's growing acceptance of portrait realism on coinage. Brenner originally included his full initials prominently on the reverse, but after controversy they were removed, later restored in 1918 in a reduced form on the obverse. This obverse portrait continued unchanged into 1996, though the mint years later modified die steel, die sharpness, and relief depth to meet the needs of faster, more automated coin presses. These updates subtly affected how sharply Lincoln's hair textures, coat folds, and facial contours appeared on coins from different decades. Above Lincoln's head, the motto "In God We Trust," adopted on the cent in 1909, formed a curved arc that followed the coin's ridge. The word "Liberty" appeared to the left of Lincoln's profile, spaced so that it balanced the blank area behind his head without crowding the rim. To the right of the portrait was the date, 1996, struck in a modernized, slightly squared typeface that had been used on cents since the late 1960s. Beneath the date appeared the mint mark when appropriate. In 1996, the Denver Mint used the small D mark, while cents struck in Philadelphia carried no mint mark at all. The San Francisco Mint, which produced proof sets, used an S, but those proof versions had a mirror-like finish created by multiple polished die strikes rather than the standard circulation strike. The reverse design in 1996 continued the Lincoln Memorial motif introduced in 1959 to honor the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. Chief engraver Frank Gasparro created the design after studying photographs and architectural drawings of the real memorial in Washington, D.C. Gasparro worked to convey the depth and symmetry of the structure within the small confines of a cent surface. He crafted sharply defined columns, a wide staircase at the base, and clear roof lines that framed the memorial. One of the most notable features was the tiny seated figure of Lincoln visible between the central columns, an artistic detail that created a subtle link between the obverse portrait and the national monument on the reverse. Encircling the memorial were the inscriptions "United States of America" at the top and "1 cent" at the bottom, each spaced to maintain symmetry around the central building. Above the roofline, Gasparro placed the motto "E pluribus unum," engraved in small but high-relief lettering to ensure visibility even as dies wore through large production runs. While the 1996 cent looked traditional, its internal composition resulted from a significant shift made in the early 1980s. For many decades, the cent had been made mainly of bronze, a mixture of copper, tin, and zinc. However, rising copper prices made it increasingly expensive to strike billions of pennies each year. In 1982, the mint changed to a zinc-based planchet coated with a thin layer of copper. A 1996 penny, therefore, consisted of a core of 97.5% zinc covered with 2.5% copper plating. Outwardly, the coin retained the familiar red-brown color of older copper cents, but its internal structure was far lighter. This shift required new minting techniques because the copper plating could be damaged if the dies struck too forcefully, while insufficient pressure could weaken fine details in the memorial and the obverse portrait. At the Mint, production of the 1996 cent began with creating zinc blanks, which were then fed through machines that coated them with molten copper. After cooling and tumbling to smooth their edges, these blanks were transformed into planchets by upsetting machines that raised the rims. Only then were they struck by hardened steel dies bearing Brenner's portrait and Gasparro's memorial. High-speed presses delivered precise, powerful strikes to ensure that every pillar of the memorial and every strand of Lincoln's hair appeared clearly. Because zinc is softer than the earlier bronze alloy, dies wore down more quickly, so the mint monitored die life carefully and replaced worn dies before details degraded noticeably. The result was a coin that preserved long-standing artistic elements while reflecting the economic and technological realities of the late 20th century. The 1996 Lincoln penny, though outwardly familiar to generations of Americans, embodied a century of accumulated design choices, material adaptations, and production innovations that together shaped its final form. Although the 1996 Lincoln cent is fundamentally a mass-produced modern coin, an even deeper look at its rarity and potential high value reveals how difficult it actually is for any individual specimen to rise above the billions of ordinary examples. Every step in the minting chain, metal preparation, blank production, die condition, striking pressure, machine handling, sorting, bagging, transport, and eventual long-term storage, creates countless opportunities for small imperfections. Because the cent's copper-plated zinc composition exaggerates these flaws far more than older bronze cents did, nearly all 1996 pennies show some kind of defect when examined closely, and this is why truly top-quality pieces are genuinely scarce despite enormous mintage numbers. One of the most overlooked contributors to rarity comes from the plating process itself. During 1996, the mint relied on high-speed automated systems that coated zinc blanks with an ultra-thin copper layer. The copper needed to form a consistent, uniform surface that could withstand striking pressure without stretching or tearing. Even microscopic variations in plating thickness affected how the metal flowed into recessed die cavities. A slightly thin patch might cause the copper layer to distort over Lincoln's cheek or in the deep recesses around the memorial's inner columns. These distortions often start invisible but slowly expand as the zinc beneath reacts to environmental moisture. As the plating begins to bubble, darken, or separate, the coin becomes permanently flawed. Surviving examples with absolutely even plating, even under high magnification, represent an extremely small percentage of the total coin struck. A similar level of complexity applies to die wear and die preparation. Dies used for 1996 cents were manufactured using modern reduction hubs, but the steel still degraded rapidly when striking copper-plated zinc. Dies began showing fatigue after tens or hundreds of thousands of strikes, leading to softening of intricate elements such as the memorial's upper steps, the separation lines in Lincoln's beard, and the tiny interior statue. Coins struck early in a die's life display crisp, angular details, while those struck later take on rounded edges and weaker devices. Collectors seeking the most valuable 1996 cents look for early die state pieces, particularly those struck when dies were newly polished and free from microscopic abrasion. These high-quality, crisp strike coins are very scarce because they represent only a short portion of each die's lifespan. Packaging and handling at the mint created additional layers of rarity. After striking, most 1996 cents were funneled into large hoppers, transported on conveyor systems, dumped into bulk bags, and moved through automated counting and rolling equipment. This process caused countless tiny abrasions, rim dings, field scuffs, and contact scratches. Even if a coin left the press nearly perfect, it might be downgraded within seconds as it collided with thousands of other coins. Only the few cents that escaped significant contact, either by chance or by being set aside early, have any chance of achieving the highest mint state grades. This is why coins graded MS-68 or better are extraordinarily rare. They represent coins that not only emerged from a freshly prepared die with perfect plating but also somehow survived the mint's rough mechanical handling without acquiring damage. Error coins from 1996 also require greater nuance to understand their rarity. While minor die cracks or small off-center strikes are relatively common and modest in value, major structural errors are highly unusual. A genuine full broad strike, where the collar failed completely and the coin expanded outward into a distorted disc, indicates a rare mechanical malfunction. Double strikes with dramatic misalignment are even less common, because most misfeeds were caught by automatic press sensors before a second strike occurred. Wrong planchet errors, such as a cent struck on a dime planchet, are genuinely rare because strict metal segregation made these occurrences extremely unlikely. When such an error is authenticated, it can command very high prices due to both its rarity and its dramatic appearance. Long-term environmental behavior of copper-plated zinc introduces yet another dimension. Even when stored in seemingly safe conditions, these coins often develop internal reactions. Zinc expands slightly over the decades, pushing against the copper layer and forming raised blisters. The copper can also develop uneven color patterns due to reactions with airborne sulfur, nitrogen compounds, and residual oils from human handling. Coins that have survived for nearly 30 years without developing color streaks, dark spots, hazing, or zinc-induced surface disruptions are far rarer than the total mintage implies. High-grade coins that retain full, bright mint luster, especially the original cartwheel effect typical of fresh strikes, are exceptionally scarce because luster is the first quality to fade as the coin interacts with air and humidity. For proof 1996 cents, rarity becomes even more tightly tied to preservation. The mirror-like fields are so sensitive that a single dust particle sliding across the surface can create hairlines visible only under magnification yet severe enough to lower the grade. High-quality proofs must retain a flawless reflective surface, evenly frosted devices, and no signs of haze or spotting. Because proofs were often stored in plastic packaging that can trap moisture or release chemical vapors, the number of surviving flawless specimens naturally decreases over time. A proof cent graded at the highest levels decades after striking becomes rare not because the mint struck few of them, but because so few have escaped the slow, natural degradation of their delicate surfaces. Altogether, the rarity and potential high value of the 1996 Lincoln penny do not come from the date itself, but from the extreme difficulty of finding examples that beat the odds at every stage of their existence. Only coins with perfect plating, an early die strike, minimal mechanical handling damage, and decades of flawless preservation truly stand out from the billions minted. Combined with the occasional dramatic mint error or a pristine proof specimen, these exceptional survivors form the small group of 1996 cents that possess genuine rarity and command the highest collector interest. If you enjoyed today's exploration, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more coin discoveries, and share this video with fellow collectors. And as always, keep searching for those hidden treasures in your change. You never know when you might stumble upon the next big mystery.